Hi friends, today I'll be discussing some of the trending stories that have been appearing these days. So the first story is about an ex-police officer who is facing punishments for impaling a homeless man to lick a urinal. The last time I checked, an influencer who licked the toilet seat a few months back almost instantly got the coronavirus, which means a good rule of thumb is anything related to toilet isn't the most sanitary. Therefore, this is a patent disregard for the homeless man's health, dignity, and an obvious disrespect towards him as an individual. A coercion that actually leverages on one's purported authority to gain submission. There is no reason for the ex-police officer to pressurize the homeless man to abide by the absurd demand other than for his own twisted entertainment or to stroke his own ego. If he really wanted to boost his ego, I would suggest simpler ways, such as telling his kids he's a police officer. That would probably be the coolest thing a 6-year-old has ever heard other than ice cream for dinner. He allegedly threatened to arrest the homeless man if he didn't follow through with the urinal licking request, which is a very odd request even if it is at the behest of someone with authority. That's like my teacher telling me to copy my friend's homework before submitting to her, even though she can directly email me the answers. In order for the non-existent threats to work, they prey solely on the fear of the victims and also with the hopes that the homeless man will not call on his bluff. Truly a masterful move by the ex-police officer, relying on his sheer will and pure immorality to power through with this abhorrent behavior. This whole incident happened back in 2018 when fidget spinners were still cool. At that time, the ex-police officer and his co-worker were in the midst of answering a complaint for nuisance, which surprisingly led them to the toilet for some reason. Not trying to comment on their detective skills, but the only nuisance one can find in the toilet is excess urine on the toilet seats. The homeless man was using the toilet as refuge, which probably means he wasn't having a pleasant day, because toilet wouldn't be anyone's first choice for shelter unless you're in a 5-star hotel. Then the toilet might be ranked slightly above my bedroom. Therefore, to seek for such an unwanted area as one's abode already indicates despair, and it would have been courteous if the ex-police officer did not come and ruin it more, such as, forcing him to lick the urinal. Looking at the physical ramifications of licking the urinal, it can cause bacterial and viral infections due to byproducts left over at the site. If the homeless man was to fall sick, who is going to take care of him? I highly doubt the ex-police officer would, because the act of helping someone is the polar opposite of forcing someone to lick a urinal. That's like your doctor beating you up before bringing you to the surgical room for operation. The act of kindness doesn't exactly fall in line with his character in the current arc of the story, but the part where he turns over a new leaf specifically after being investigated might change the statistical probability. To find out the answer, we have to wait 4 years for the next episode. The part where it really resonates with me is that this ex-police officer has 2 children. How do you inculcate good moral values within your children when you are aware of the atrocities you yourself have committed? I guess the greatest punishment for this ex-cop is not the 4 years he's going to be spending in prison, but exonerating himself in the eyes of his children for the rest of his life. Imagine when he's playing Monopoly with his children and he draws the go to jail card. How awkward would it be for him? The co-worker of this ex-policeman who witnessed this grotesque act and tried to cover up for him, to me, is just as guilty, but he will be judged some other day. Based on our current understanding of this ex-police officer who preys on civilians, imagine how he would have treated those convicts that he actually captured. And now, ironically, he's being thrown into prison. And I don't think it would be a place of solace for him. Imagine if his cellmate is one of those people that he may have affronted in the past. I guess life wouldn't be that easy for him in jail, but I guess that's what he deserved for destroying a man's dignity. The next story is also another sad news about an 80-year-old man who was allegedly beaten up and robbed in the toilet. The PR department for toilets has to do something, otherwise his reputation will be flushed down the toilet bowl. The poor old man was left in a state worse than most fighters after a match in the ring. He suffered a few broken bones in various parts of his body and was bleeding horribly. All these injuries inflicted by the alleged suspect just because he wanted to rob him. Apparently, the amount robbed was estimated to be around $20. The suspect definitely deserved to be punished severely because who beats up an elderly for $20? That's barely even enough to cover the gas money for the trip to the grocery mart, let alone drinks at Starbucks. Respect has always been emphasized as a virtue in every society, and yet it has been made clear that the only thing this guy respects is money, regardless of the value, as evident from his loot. What was running through this suspect's head when he decided to punch the elderly man over and over again as he bleeds? Like, wouldn't there be a conscience that probably stopped him from carrying out such atrocities? And I don't know, isn't guilt like a super strong emotion that impedes people from making all these very, very disastrous mistakes? So the robber is currently being charged with attempted murder amongst other charges for the $20. He's either the worst robber in history or he grew up idolizing Uncle Ben's robber in Spider-Man. Battering an old man till he requires the ICU is the type of thing that no one thought would ever be possible, but this Picasso decides to circumvent our societal expectations. His bail is at $1.5 million, which is definitely not covered by the $20 he has gotten a few days prior from the old man. Ironically, the amount of money raised by the 80-year-old elderly man triumphed the amount robbed by more than 1,000 times, which means it would have worked out better for the robber if the robber had let the elderly man rob him instead. The miscreant is facing many charges, and at this point, he's basically a Pokemon master trying to replete his Pokédex in terms of the charges. He will be learning charges that no one thought existed as he's getting charged. So this is more of an experiential program for the robber. The robber and his girlfriend, both of them actually turned themselves in, probably because their face was so widely circulated and everyone had a clear view of how they looked like. So escaping really their plan, which means they really did not think through their plan because there was no escape. It was just, oh, whoops. The girlfriend of the reprobate has her charges dropped for basically concealing his actions. However, she wasn't really there at the crime scene and maybe she would have stopped him. However, I don't think she's allowed in the toilet due to this whole idea of gender. What am I saying? Anyways, this is just a very sad story where someone who is weaker is being taken advantage of and even bullied to a point of disbelief. Who has the heart to actually hurt an elderly and even beat him till he bleeds? That's just wrong. And not wrong in the sense like he took my candy, but more like he took my candy and then beat me up. Okay, wait, that's literally what he did. But metaphorically, I guess anecdotally, it might be the same, but I guess that's what metaphors are for, is to draw parallel between both incidents. And I guess this is where people have to learn from their mistake and stop recommitting these crimes. And it seems like this person has prior convictions, and that which is why his sentencing is probably being upgraded, like those upgrades you find in games, and he probably maxed out all his stats. So I don't think they will be lenient with his sentencing. However, even though you try to punish this individual for his act, it's not really going to help the elderly man who's already severely injured, and it would take ages for people of that age to actually recuperate from such intense injuries, right? I hope this guy has a conscience. Apology may not suffice. At least I hope that the reason why he turned himself in is not because he knew that he was going to be caught, but because maybe at least he has a bit of guilt left within him, a bit of humanity. That's all.